Title: My boss tried to sabotage my promotion by taking credit for my work, but I recorded everything and got him fired. I'd been with Carter Tech for almost 4 years and knew every corner of the place. I'd been the go-to person for data analytics and strategy, working myself to the bone on late nights and weekends. A promotion had been on the horizon, and I thought this was finally my time, until David entered the picture. David had only been with us a few months, but he quickly made a name for himself as the new visionary leader. He was flashy, smooth-talking, and clearly knew how to work his way around office politics. I was cautiously optimistic about working with him at first, thinking, hey, if he's that good, maybe he'll help me make the case for my promotion. But I was way wrong. It all started with small things. I'd put together an intricate presentation on a new client project, weeks of work, analyzing market data and building out projections. David took one look at it and said, "It's a little too busy. Let's simplify it," then left with a smug smirk. I found out the next day that he'd presented my slides, tweaked just enough to make them look like his work, and claimed the praise. I confronted him later in his office. "David, I worked hard on that presentation. It would have been nice if you'd at least mentioned my involvement," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. David leaned back in his chair, gave me a once-over, and said, "Emma, let me explain something. When you work under me, we share credit. I'm guiding you here. It's just how it works in management." His words felt like a slap in the face. But he wasn't done. "Besides," he added, shrugging like he was doing me a favor, "you should be grateful you're part of this. It's how people move up in this industry." I left his office seething. Grateful? I was the one pulling the weight while he was cashing in on my work. But I figured maybe I just needed to push back harder and stand my ground. I wasn't about to let David bulldoze my work, my reputation, and my promotion. Little did I know, though, that he wasn't done playing his games. A few weeks later, the biggest project of my career came around, the Vega Initiative. This project was the reason I was even being considered for a promotion. It was an ambitious strategy to expand our company's reach into international markets, and I've been working on it day and night. The projections, the strategies, the budgets, every number, every slide, every argument in that proposal was mine. But the day before the executive review, David called me into his office with this smarmy look on his face. "Emma, I've been thinking about this. You're doing great work, but the Vega Initiative as well, it's a bit intense. I think it might be better if I handle the presentation tomorrow," he said. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "David, I know this project inside out. I've been living and breathing it for weeks. I'm ready," I shot back, hoping he'd see reason. He sighed, looking at me like I was a child who didn't get it. "It's just a lot of pressure, Emma. It would be better if you let me take this one. This way, I can make sure the execs see the value without getting bogged down in details," he said, his tone dripping with fake sympathy. My stomach dropped, and I tried to keep calm. "David, I can handle it. It's my project, and I want to be the one to present it," I insisted. But David was unfazed. "Emma, this isn't up for debate. You'll still get some recognition in the end," he said with a smirk. "Trust me." I walked out of that meeting furious. I couldn't let this happen. Not again. I spent that night putting together every email, every draft, every version of the presentation I'd worked on. I even recorded our meetings with my phone. I wasn't going to let David take this from me. The next day, David stood in front of the execs and gave the presentation, almost word for word the way I'd written it. The VP was thrilled, going on about how innovative and detailed the plan was. I sat there, fuming in silence. After the meeting, I approached David. "So that's how it's going to be?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. David didn't miss a beat. "Emma, you need to relax. You're still new to this level of responsibility," he said, patting me on the shoulder in that condescending way that made my blood boil. "When you're ready for more, you'll get your chance." I clenched my jaw, and that was the moment I knew I had to take this further. If he wanted to play dirty, I'd meet him right there. The weeks that followed were nothing short of hell. David started pulling clients off my accounts, claiming it was to lighten my workload. He'd whisper to the account managers about how I was getting overwhelmed and struggling to keep up. Projects that I'd been working on for weeks suddenly got handed off to him at the last minute, and he'd tweak a few things and take all the credit. One day, he called me into his office, grinning like he had a secret. "Emma, you've been pushing yourself a lot. It's great, but you have to be careful. People are starting to think you're, well, maybe trying a bit too hard. It's giving off the wrong impression. I laughed, a short, bitter laugh before I could stop myself. Oh, really? And what impression would that be, David? He shrugged. All fake innocence. Let people talk. They're noticing that you're, well, ambitious. And that's good, but it can be a bit much, you know? At that point, I was done pretending to respect him. David, I don't know what your problem is with me, but I'm not just going to roll over while you steal my work. David's smirk faded, and for a second, I saw a flicker of something in his eyes. Maybe fear, maybe irritation. Emma, careful. That kind of attitude isn't professional. Things came to a head during the monthly review meeting with senior executives. David had done his usual routine, asking me to send over the data analysis I'd spent weeks refining. But this time, I decided to play along. I handed him an older draft instead of the final version. When it was his turn to present, David pulled up the analysis and immediately started stumbling through the numbers. His face went pale as the VP frowned and asked for clarification on the data that didn't add up. I seized my moment. Actually, I have the finalized analysis right here, I said, raising my voice just enough for the room to quiet down. It includes the updated projections and correct figures. I pulled up my version, and David just sat there, fuming, unable to interrupt as I fielded questions from the executives. After the meeting, David cornered me in the hallway. What the hell was that, Emma? You deliberately tried to undermine me in there. He hissed, his face red. Undermine you? I shot back. That was my work, David. I wasn't about to let you make me look incompetent. He sneered. You're out of your depth. Keep this up, and you'll regret it. That was the last straw. I went straight to HR, laid out every piece of evidence, every recording, every email. They promised to investigate, but I knew it was going to take time. Meanwhile, David's campaign against me only got nastier. Over the next few weeks, David tried spreading rumors that I was too difficult to work with. He'd pull people aside, saying things like, Emma's a bit intense, don't you think? I'm just worried about her, you know? But I kept my head down, stayed focused, and kept pushing forward. I wasn't going to let him ruin everything I'd worked for. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, HR called me in. The head of HR and the VP were sitting there stone-faced. They thanked me for bringing the issue forward, confirming that David had a pattern of this behavior, and that they had enough evidence to take action. Within a day, David was terminated. The day after he was let go, I walked back into the office feeling lighter than I had in months. People were already talking about what had happened. Some looked at me with surprise, others with admiration, and a few even gave me nods of respect. A week later, I was officially offered the promotion. Not only did I get the position I'd fought for, but I was also put in charge of the Vega initiative. Upper management even apologized for not recognizing the situation sooner and praised me for my resilience. In the end, David's entitlement and dirty tricks had backfired spectacularly. By trying to sabotage me, he'd ended up sabotaging himself. And I, for one, was more than ready to take on my new role, finally on my own terms.